to see everyone. Let me ask you a question. You can answer down here in the little chat box. Who here has made an attempt to read Shir HaShirim in the past year or two?
I read through it.
Oh, cool. Who was that?
Oh, it's Allison.
Allison. Okay, great. All right. Oh, okay, great. Looks like we've got some, looks like Michael read it on Shabbos. Yes, Gabrielle read it on Shabbos. Yeah, we have some people that read Jacob, not I. Okay. So you got some different responses. I don't know what it is. So Shir HaShirim is, if anyone doesn't know what it is, it's the Song of Songs, okay, in the Tanakh. So yeah, it's one of the more difficult things, but it's something that's really, really beautiful, and I wanted to look at it with you tonight. So I'm getting multiple feedbacks over here. Okay, so and I'll just share with you that last week it was the second Seder. So my second Seder was ending, and my son went into the kitchen. It was around 1 a.m. and he finds the bottle of wine that I had bought and used for our charosas. And he says, Abba, I don't want to spoil the party here, but the bottle says not for Passover use.
Boy.
Oh, goodness gracious. And here I am thinking to myself, after weeks of preparation, I had managed to buy a bottle of wine that didn't have KFP, Passover supervision. And I think these things happen to all of us at times, but it just made me kind of look back and think about all the preparations. So many preparations, and even then, a little something slipped through the cracks. But I mean, from the first closet we clean to the last kazayit of matzah, Nisan is just filled with all these laws, all these halachas that we are fulfilling. And it's really quite an amazing thing, as we're immersed in koshering pots and lining our countertops. There's also another thing that's going on though, and that is that there's the theme of love that's coming up, and the birds are chirping outside, the flowers are budding, and we start to read the Haggadah, right? And the Haggadah has some images of love. Remember those love images of the bare young Jewish people? And then we read Shir HaShirim, which is really, it's the heart of love imagery in Tanakh. And so I was thinking to myself, we kind of have two things going on over here. We've got the laws, right? And we've got the love. So I think we kind of have to understand those two things, and especially, I think one of the things that's happening in our world is that we look out at the non-Jewish society. We look, for example, at the Christian world, and there's a lot of talk about love, right? And their religion, and the idea is that the Jewish people, they're too into the laws, but we also have love, but we also have laws. And so what's the balance between these two things? What does being so into the law, the halacha, does that undermine our passion? Does that undermine our the deep love imagery that we get in Shir HaShirim? And of course, if you want to delve into this, you've got to start to look at Shir HaShirim. We've got to look at that. It's really, and by the way, we on Pesach, traditionally, we read Shir HaShirim on the day of Pesach after the Seder and on Shabbat Chol HaMoed. And it's really a tantalizing book. Anyone who loves Israel, you just read through Shir HaShirim and so many images of the land of Israel. You can practically smell Israel when you're walking through the verses. And it speaks very openly about love in very strong ways. Shir HaShirim, the Song of Songs, says that love is stronger than death. And yet, Judaism also views Shir HaShirim as an allegory for the love between Israel and God. In fact, if you pick up the Art Scroll translation, they don't even have a literal word for word translation. Okay, they translated it only allegorically. So the Art Scroll will translate a phrase as like let's say a phrase like "your breasts are like two fawns." They will translate it as Moses and Aaron who sustain you are like two fawns. It sounds pretty, pretty far from the straightforward meaning of the verses. I mean, what's going on? I mean, taken out of context, these kinds of translations could seem kind of bizarre. And I think we have to look at Shir HaShirim. I think it's really important for us. I remember I was reading a Wall Street Journal article of all things a number of months ago that was kind of making fun of Rashi's translation of Shir HaShirim. And I think that's an easy thing to do when you don't have understand the Jewish perspective. But there's a lot going on in Shir HaShirim. How do we approach it? How do we understand it? And the truth is that Shir HaShirim is not like so simple. I mean, on the one hand, it's kind of like a back and forth conversation between these two lovers. There's a male, there's a female. There's a female lover who's recalling her intense love that she once had. And sometimes it's just a male. Sometimes it seems like that lover is King Solomon. And then we get images of the temple. And there's all sorts of things that are kind of strange for a love song in there. And another confusing thing is that there's like a third wheel, right? So if you read through Song of Songs, it's like there's this male and female kind of talking back and forth. And then there's like this third wheel that the female is talking to these daughters of Jerusalem. So it's like there's this other whole element here. Another thing about the Song of Songs is that you just have things that maybe could be explained as a love song, but they just seem like, wow, where did that come from? Like in the, great example, in the first chapter, you have the female talking about how her lover is pasturing somewhere where she doesn't know, and she's ended up in another flock, and she's tending to vineyards that are not really hers. And then she's like comparing her lover to the horses of Pharaoh's army. So I'm not saying, I mean, could you explain this just as a love song? Maybe. I'll actually tell you, what I actually did over Yom Tov, I said to myself, is it an allegory? Is it literal? And I read through it just trying to think of it just as a literal love song. And I had a very, very hard time doing that. And so how do we, but there is love, right? And there are real love images. So how do we try to make sense of this? So I think it's really important for us to look at Shir HaShirim in light of the rest of Tanakh. And I want to make just three points about Tanakh, okay?
I mean, all these people's houses.
The point is that the use of allegory is prevalent in Tanakh. We really find allegory. An example of that is, we actually saw this in our Shabbat Gadol Drasha in the 11th parak of Yeshayahu. Isaiah talked about this future messianic vision, and he spoke about how the wolf is going to lie down with the lamb, right? Anyone remember what the wolf lying down with the lamb really means? It's not about animals, it's about world peace, right? Well, why didn't Isaiah just say, hey, the nations that are armed to the teeth are going to make peace with the weak nations? You could have done that, okay? But the allegory, that image of this ferocious animal lying down with the lamb, that's what he felt we really needed to really understand his vision. And so this allegory throughout Tanakh, that's number one. Number two, this image of Israel in a love relationship with God doesn't start with this book, Shir HaShirim. It comes up in a number of places. In Hosea, we are compared to a bride. Yeshayahu uses this idea. Yirmiyahu says that Israel is like a lover following God into an unsown land. There's many, many images throughout Tanakh of the Jewish people in a love relationship metaphorically a marriage with God. And finally, I want to say that this phrase, daughters of Jerusalem, also has a context in Tanakh. And daughters of Jerusalem, does anyone know what the daughters of Jerusalem can refer to in Tanakh? Has anyone seen that phrase before? The daughters of Jerusalem? What do you think that means? Anyone want to comment in the chat box? Don't all shout at once here. So the daughters of Jerusalem, Kohanis? Not sure what that means. Kohanim, no. Okay, good. Okay, no, it's not the Kohanim. The daughters of Jerusalem image often means the non-Jewish nations. Okay, so like Jerusalem is the kind of the center, and then the non-Jewish nations around it. So, so to summarize, number one, we have allegory in Tanakh, and number two, the idea of Israel and God in a love relationship. That's not anything new. Okay. So in light of this, we can start to kind of see where the commentaries are coming from as they tackle Shir HaShirim. And Rashi explains that what's going on over here is that there's these two lovers. One lover is Israel, the female voice, and then the male voice is God, sometimes Shlomo. And then the third party that sometimes the female is talking to, the daughters of Jerusalem, is the nations of the world. And this whole allegory is building a picture of Israel and a love relationship with God, talking to God, but also talking to the nations of the world at the very same time. And I want to read to you a little bit of the words of Rashi, okay, from the beginning of when he introduces this song, okay? So listen to this. Rashi says, there's no verse that leaves its plain meaning. Okay, in other words, when the prophets gave an allegory, they used it for a reason. And even though the prophets spoke the words allegorically, the allegory needs to be reconciled with its form and order, just as the verses are ordered one after the other. In other words, what Rashi's saying, we need to understand the literal images, but we also need to kind of look at what they're implying, what they're suggesting. And so Rashi takes the Song of Songs and looks at it verse by verse as a sequential history of the love relationship between the Jewish people and God from Sinai all the way through exile. And he follows that theme throughout. We're not going to be able to go through the whole Song of Songs tonight, okay? It's a long thing. But I just want to share with you like one or two things that I think are really helpful for kind of understanding what's the big picture idea that Shlomo wants us to get out of this. And so I'm actually going to share with you, if I can manage to do this. Here we are. All right, can you see this? Can you see my screen? Can you see my screen?
No.
Oh, I didn't do the share yet. 1 second. Whoops. Okay. Are you seeing my screen now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay,
You're
great.
good.
Yes.
Very good.
Yeah.
So if you look at the third chapter of the Song of Songs, so I'll just read to you, okay? Al mishkavi b'leilot bikashti et shava nafshi. On my couch at night, I sought the one I love. I sought him, but I found him not. I arise and go out into the marketplaces and streets. I seek him. The city guards find me until I find the one that my soul loves. I grab him and I do not let him loose until I bring him to the house of my mother, the room where I was conceived of. I adjure you, O daughters of Jerusalem, not to disturb the love as long as it is desired. So what is that? What do those images make you think? What does that conjure up for you? What is Shir HaShirim chapter 3? What does it suggest to you? What kind of ideas does this give you? Any thoughts? Well, okay, I did come prepared here. Okay, so I'm not going to disappoint you. So, I mean, first of all, by the way, when you look at verses like this, it's like, wait a second, is this just a love song? I mean, what's the idea of bringing the lover to your mother's room where she conceived you? So, and why are we talking to the daughters of Jerusalem all of a sudden? So Rashi elaborates and says, Israel. In this allegory, Israel is in exile, longing for God, longing to bring her lover, the divine presence, back to the place where she was conceived in the city of Jerusalem. But the main thing here is an image that we can all relate to. What's the image? It's someone who's lovesick. It's someone who's sick with love. Have you ever known someone that's lovesick? I once had a roommate in college who was infatuated with a girl, and I remember, it's like, you're sitting with him at the cafeteria, and it's like kind of got a blank look on his face, but like, what he's really thinking about. You know what I'm talking about? That phrase, lovesick, is actually mentioned a number of times in Shir HaShirim. So look at these images in Shir HaShirim. What's going on here? The lover is lovesick. She can't sleep at night. She's up in the middle of the night. She's wandering through the streets, right? She's literally just so engrossed in her love. So what does this mean for us? Okay, great. We've got this image. For God. What could that mean for us? How could that guide us? By the way, is my audio okay?
It broke a little, but it's good now.
Yeah, it
What's
broke
that?
up a little.
The audio broke up?
It dropped
Yeah, it keeps breaking up.
just recently.
Oh, okay.
But you're good
How
now.
long ago did it break up?
20 seconds.
Yeah.
20 seconds? Okay. All right. So so what do you think we could what do you think we could get from this? What do you think we could gain from this image of being lovesick? The Rambam says we have a mitzvah that has everything to do with love. What is that mitzvah? Yahavtas Hashem, you shall love Hashem your God with all your heart, with all of your soul. In fact, I'm going to share with you this source over here in the Rambam. This again, let me get into here. Share screen. Okay, can you see the screen?
Yes.
Are we guys see the screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So the Rambam learns from Shir HaShirim. This is how we're supposed to relate to God. All right? He says, proper love. Right? He says, you should love Hashem with a very great and strong love, finding yourself meditating upon it. This is your lovesick. When his mind is, translation is bad. It's like someone who's so in love with a woman, he can't stop thinking about anything else. Who's shoga batami, just constantly thinking about it, right? When someone is lovesick, the Rambam says, what do? You eat, you sleep, you dream, you daydream about your love, right? And so that's really the exact image that we see in Shir HaShirim. And the Rambam points that out. Hu sheshlomo amar derech mashal ki cholas avani. This is what King Solomon said, that I am lovesick, right? In other words, the Rambam is saying that Shir HaShirim, which is an allegory showing the relationship between God and Israel, teaches us what it means to have this love relationship with Hashem, that we're lovesick. Okay, and so what is that? What can that look like in our lives? And I think that there's a lot of examples of this. I mean, the Rambam says, person just eat, sleep, and drink. We think about great Torah scholars. It's known, for example, the great Panovich Rosh Yeshiva. He was so immersed in learning, even when he was first moving to Israel, and he was so impoverished. It said that he couldn't sleep at night very often because he was so immersed in his learning. He would sit on his bed and think about a kasha difficulty that the Brisker Rav asked him. He was completely immersed like a lover in his love of Torah. But you don't have to be a Rosh Yeshiva to have this love. There's so many people, so many simple people that can have it. I'll share with you an example. My wife has, her name is Aunt Judy, and she's an incredible person. She's someone who's not been without her share of travail. She actually lost 3 husbands. She never had any children. She's been through a lot of things. But I mean, whenever you see her, she just has such an incredible love that she exudes. And over the years, whenever you ask her, "Oh, how are you doing, Judy?" she would say, "This is the day that God has created. Let's rejoice in it." That's always what she would say. Now she has dementia, right? But even still, to this day, when you go to her and you say, "Judy, how are things going?" she says, So, I mean, you can be a Rosh Yeshiva, you can be a simple person. We all can achieve a certain kind of love of Hashem. And so when you think about it, by the way, love and laws, by the way, are not a contradiction at all. I mean, think about a love relationship between 2 people. In a love relationship, you can have laws, right? It could be something as basic as do not commit adultery, or it could be something like, hey, be available for dinner every Tuesday night, right? Lovers have agreements in a sense. And when there's an agreement between lovers, or like a law, that's kind of a way that you make the love endure. And that's also really what happens in our love relationship with the Jewish people and God. So we have this great passion that we describe in Shir HaShirim, but we also have these incredible laws that make our love endure. And the love and the laws are really like 2 sides of the same coin. I mean, think about the Jewish people. You think about the way that the Jews keep Pesach in all circumstances and all times, what we go through to keep a kosher Chag. It's just mind-blowing. And I think that during a lot of Nisan, we were kind of in this process of getting ready for the Chag and keeping all of the halachos. But now we're looking to Har Sinai. We're looking towards the time when we'll consummate our relationship with Hashem. And so it's a really important time in our lives. It's an important time in the world, an important time in the Jewish year. And I just want to close by saying, I think we really need to all look for our own point of passion. We need to remember what Shir HaShirim teaches us, that the relationship with God is a passionate relationship. Those images have a literal meaning, but they point to a deeper passion in the world between Israel and God. And so I want you to take some time during these days to find your passion. Is there a book in the Torah? Is there Tehillim or something that you've learned, or some mitzvah, something that's really precious to you, something that you can kind of meditate on day and night, and make a commitment to that, get into that. And when you do so, you're going to really you're going to build up a real deeper love. You can really do it. You can do it as a Rosh Yeshiva, but you can do it as any person can build love within themselves towards Hashem. You completely have it within you. So we should all work on that. And as we do it, I think we'll discover a little bit deeper the meaning of this idea that we have a love that all the waters cannot quench.